Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Christopher Chase Carey. Christopher Chase Carey spent 20 years in corporate America's health insurance and consulting industry in significant positions. In 1998, as the VP of Underwriting for Aetna Income, he contacted the chief medical officer telling him of the benefits of meditation and other complementary and alternative medicine techniques. He received a polite reply that he was simply too far ahead of them. So, through meditation and learning martial arts, you have come to where you are today. Welcome to the podcast, Chase.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Kimberly, I don't know. Just on the way into the office, I saw a spider cross the road. Do you know what it was doing?
Oh, no. What was it doing?
It was getting to its website.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And I'm not even an IT guy.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So people can get to know you. We won't tell any more jokes, but so people can get to know you. Why don't you tell us like how you started out in corporate and how you got to be doing what you're doing today? Because it's quite different.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's painful. So get some cough syrup and just relax. I literally was hitchhiking home from a job interview. I got out of college. I graduated in the summer of '80. And we were in a pretty good recession then. Found out about a job opportunity in New Jersey, walked 3 miles to the train station, took the train into the city, took the train up to New Jersey somewhere. Great interview, didn't get the job. Coming home on the train, I have a 3 mile walk back. I'm hitchhiking. Guy stops and picks me up. I don't know if you can do that today. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm coming home from a job interview." Said, "Oh, well, we're hiring like crazy." I'm like, "Really?" 2, 3 weeks later, I had a job paying claims for Prudential on what was then the AARP account. So that really started my corporate career. I went from there to primarily underwriting. I did market research and compliance and some other things, advertising, which all very interesting, but it's mostly underwriting. And then, I did that, and I grew in it, did very well. Prudential was very good at rotating you around. So you had a tremendous exposure to the entire industry or the entire operation inside and out from the customer's perspective and the insurance company perspective. And then I got a job as a consultant with what was then a very large consulting firm, which has been gobbled up many, many times over. And that was a pretty cool job. It was brutal because you hit the ground running, literally. And then I went back to the corporate world, got a great job, ran an underwriting unit, and then boom, boom, got up to VP of Underwriting. But I had a speed bump in my life. And I kind of paused because, I'd done everything my parents taught me, at least I thought I had. And I'd gone to school and I got a graduate degree. Prudential paid for that. Thank you very much. It's actually from what is today the #1 business school in America. Had a wife, lovely daughter, nice home, good job, good paycheck, was nice to people, didn't get into debt, and I have a brother that decides to kill himself. Got in trouble, blew his brains out. Happens, I get that. It's all good. Don't worry about that. Many years ago. But as I looked around at other people, and most people are just really just regular people. They're just living day to day, and they're not attempting to improve their life or improve the life of other people. And that drove me crazy. And I'm not saying what they do is wrong. It just drove me crazy when people just sit there and drive 55 miles an hour in the left-hand lane. You kind of want to, but that's illegal, unfortunately. And so I found out about the Monroe Institute, where they use audio technology that they help the CIA with, and learn mindfulness and meditation. And then later on in life, in the last 8 years, trained as a martial artist. So boom, that's my life in a nutshell. Wow. And here I am in Georgia, just a regular guy in a house in a suburb with a chainsaw, and good job.
Mm-hmm. So what made you decide to start martial arts?
Wow. Yeah, okay, that's kind of interesting. I had abdominal surgery, major abdominal surgery. Everything's fine, don't worry about that. And I was treated, I would say, inappropriately in the hospital. And I promised myself I would never, ever allow another set of human beings to ever treat me like that again. And there was a local martial arts studio within walking distance of my home. And so 2.5 months later, after I recovered, I went in and signed up. And the interesting thing is, you go in there and I'm out of shape and, quite a bit overweight. And I said, so what does it take to become a black belt? And they said, don't worry about that. A black belt is a white belt who never quit. I'm like, hmm. And they said, show up and practice, and we'll take you through everything. And keep focused on what's right in front of you. Don't worry about 2 or 3 years down the road. Don't worry about 2 months down the road. Don't worry about, just focus on what we need you to do today. And we won't let you fall behind, and you can't test without our permission. And so you had standards you had to work up to. And the second most interesting thing about that is after I got my black belt, I figured I'm out of here. And indeed, 90% of people that start martial arts don't even get to the black belt. They quit before them. But I found getting a first degree black belt was really just the beginning. All the color belts, 9 of them, was more of a, will you put in the time? Will you persevere? Will you put in the practice? Will you take private lessons? Will you go to tournaments? Will you do it? And then once you prove yourself and then pass a pretty rigorous test, now you're really ready for training. And that was a real mind opener and really boosted my confidence because I can say, yes, I can. And yes, I can doesn't mean I can do everything I want to do right when I want to do it. But if I put my mind to it, I can do it. In fact, my second book, called Chasing Your Mind Warrior, talks about how people can think, act, and persevere like a black belt, even though they may never have the opportunity or the desire to go into a martial arts studio. Because it's a lot of work. No question about it. It's a lot of work. I think before my first degree test, I had done something like 10 to 12,000 kicks and 10 to 12,000 strikes. And, God knows how many other things. Wow. Bruce Lee has a statement that goes something like this: I don't fear the person who knows 1,000 different strikes. I fear the person who knows one strike and has done it 1,000 times.
Yeah. So that leads up to my next question. What's the difference in mindset and practice of someone who's in the color belts as opposed to someone who's into their black belt years?
It's probably, a lot of it has to do with confidence. And that sounds fairly simple. But when we're not confident, we're actually afraid, and we tend not to be all in. When you say, yes, I can, I've got this, and you're proud. You understand that you've done something pretty significant with your life, because there's no way it's not that it bleeds into other aspects of your life. It is how you conduct your life. As a black belt, even as a martial artist, your behavior in the studio is the same as your behavior outside the studio. Period. End of story. For children in the program, if they don't do their homework, interact with their friends and parents respectfully, keep their room clean, do their chores, they do not advance. They cannot test. And a belt can be taken from them. In martial arts, we always address each other as Mr. or Miss or Ma'am, and we can use the first name. But once you become a black belt, it's Mr. or Mrs. or Ma'am or Ms. and the last name only. And that's in and outside of the studio. So people I know, and I have friends from the studio, even if I visit them at lunch or they come over on the weekend or I'm visiting them at their place of work, it's always Mr. or Miss or ma'am or sir and last name. And that's really, I got to tell you, and that's the first part of my Chasing Mind Warrior book. The first thing is respect always. I guess I'm giving a little bit too much of an answer to this, but I do want to take a moment and talk about the respect. Is when we address people with respect, all other previous thoughts, miscellaneous thoughts, right or wrong, go away. So for example, you might be in corporate America, and those of us that have worked in corporate America, they're jerks everywhere. Let's face it, people with different agendas. And it's a small percentage, but it's a percentage. And so you could be walking down the hallway and, this person who's senior to you is coming up to you and you're thinking, oh my God, what is this person going to want me to do now? Or what ridiculous thing are they going to say? Or why aren't they at their desk working? But when you get rid of that and just say, yes, Mr., Miss, ma'am, and listen to what they have to say, number one, you're really listening. Number two, they pick up on that and there's a connection. Mm-hmm. And the resistance drops. Because when we first form negative thoughts about somebody, there's a resistance. And there can be value to that. If somebody's a jerk, you want to have resistance. You want to keep them at arm's length. But we do it too many times with too many things. We drive down the road and somebody cuts us off and, oh, that guy's a jerk. Well, maybe his wife is about to deliver and needs to get to the hospital. Maybe his mom just died. That actually happened to me once. Maybe he just made a mistake or she just made a mistake. We tend to get tied up in all these little things in life that are no meaning.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And as you were saying with your book, you kind of compare life to being a black belt. And, especially as Americans, we're always looking for that shortcut, that shortcut. So, I'm, in middle age. And so I feel a lot more confident now in my decisions and everything just because of living this many years.
Yes.
So when it comes to life and being mindful and getting to that mature state where you have that confidence, are there any shortcuts or do we just have to do the practice and go through the years?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if shortcut is the correct word. I think a direct line, and mindfulness and meditation bring you to that. I view mindfulness as 2% of the mindfulness meditation concept discipline, and meditation really 98%. Mindfulness teaches us to turn our attention 180 degrees away from all the noise and all the static and all the chit chat and people trying to sell us things, or people trying to make us feel bad because we don't have this or don't have that, and blah, 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 blah. And simply listen within. This is not a religious conversation, but I'll use the term soul, the spirit within, the energy within, whatever works in a person's intuition. The direct connection, the connection is actually through the heart. That's the most receptive area for that. And the soul is not this little powerful piece inside of us. We are absolutely actually encompassed by this enormous energy and this power, this divine creation called soul. Think of it as nested eggs, and it's just enormous around us. And but our connection's in here, and it has a lot to share with us. But when we're watching TV and doing all crazy stuff, we can't hear it. And part of so that's kind of the shortcut. It's more of a direct cut to something. If you remember from math class, there were sometimes very, very long ways to get to an answer, or a very, very short way to get to an answer. And I like the short way. My nickname's actually Chase. It's not my name. It's a nickname I earned on a kind of a vision quest thing out in the Havasupai Indian Reservation in the Grand Canyon. That's big stuff. It's simple, and most of us learn. We think we need to have PhDs, which is great, and I would like to get one myself. But it's not necessary if you simply want to connect with divinity and the source of all in the universe, the creator, whatever you wish to however you wish to label it. It's by getting quiet and going inside. And martial arts is the same thing. You walk into the studio, you get on the mat. It does not matter what happened to you 5 minutes ago. It doesn't matter. You're going to start exercising and you're going to start performing, and you're going to have to perform well. Period, end of story.
So I know, my faith and that connection is really important in my life. In fact, I have a friend that says, it's too hard to just live in the body. You got to have that connection because it's just too much going on.
It
And when you
is.
have that connection, it almost drowns out what's happening around you. I mean, you know it's there, but you're just focused here.
Yes, and people can see it in your eyes, Kimberly, right off the bat. There's a divine spark. You have that direct connection. Perhaps it was a gift you were born with, perhaps it is something you develop, but it is genuine, and you're radiating, this love and this peace and this relaxation, and that's tremendous. And wouldn't you rather be that kind of person than somebody always complaining about something else?
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely. So let's talk a little bit more about meditation. Is it just getting quiet within oneself and reflecting, or what does meditation mean to you? Because I've heard people say breathing meditations, or some people say mantra meditations. In fact, someone from the outside, I do some meditation, but I still look at the whole gamut of what people call meditation and can get very unclear about what exactly it is.
Yeah, it's kind of a loose, squiggly paramecium or whatever it was we studied in biology that's squiggling all over the place and has a different shape every moment. It's probably all meditation. The real what you most of what you described are methods to meditate or methods to get into that connection. The whole idea is to connect with the inside of you, which is your connection to divinity. It's your connection to intelligence. Breathing works very, very well at that. Mantras work very, very well at that. There are many, many different things. The Monroe Institute developed, they use binaural beat technology, which is a longer story, but it puts you into deep meditative states within minutes, whether you want to be there or not. For me, my differentiator is once you get there, what do you do? And there's a lot of value in just kind of getting there and hanging out and just allowing the noise to be somewhere else. Somebody that does that 10, 15, 20 minutes most days during the week, it's going to be, let's say they're going to be a more effective person, perhaps. They're going to be less rattled by the things we see on TV. Because there's almost nothing on TV where somebody's not trying to sell you something, which is fine, but we don't really realize that. Now, what I tend to do, my specialty, is I help people dialogue with their subconscious mind. It's referred to as personal self-integration. I think I'm going to call it deep mind exploration, or deep mind mining, something like that. Because here's the concept. The concept is that the subconscious mind is probably 200 or 300, maybe more IQ points ahead of the conscious mind. And the subconscious mind dominates sometimes for sure, but has a much greater presence in our conscious mind than we actually know. Now, if you're willing to work with the concept of past lives, whether real or not real, it is a model that exists. We can take the subconscious mind and separate it out and say, hey, this subconscious mind, it's lived, 1,000 lifetimes, whatever the number is, over tens of thousands of years or thousands of years or hundreds of years. Well, the subconscious mind doesn't actually exist in the physical reality like you and I knocking on things and speaking. Our conscious mind is really there. The subconscious mind exists in one or two of the energetic bodies around a person. That's a different conversation. But the key is that that part of us doesn't experience time. So to the subconscious mind, if something happened to it 10,000 years ago, it could have well been 10 minutes ago. It can't tell the difference because time is, and I don't quite understand how this is, but this is how the teachers explain it to me. Time is something that can be manipulated and controlled, not manipulated in a bad way, but you can move throughout time just as you could throughout a community. So what's the cut to the chase point on this? Why does that matter? What's the difference? Well, the first thing is that the subconscious mind has had a lot of experiences it considers negative. It's done things in earlier lives. I have a distinct memory of being a watcher of children, and I turned my back and a child was run over and killed by a cart. Now that sounds absolutely ridiculous, right? Whether or not that actually happened, there's part of my mind that believes it happened. And that's what matters. Rolling Stone magazine years ago did a cover story on perception versus reality of their readers. And the perception was all the readers were hippies. And this is a short story. And the reality was they were people like you and me, probably a bit younger, that had professional jobs and did other things and were educated. So what happens with the subconscious mind, for example, something very simple. Somebody's afraid of heights. Somebody's afraid of flying. Worked with a lady, professional in the insurance industry a little bit ago. She was off to a conference on Sunday for a week, and she was really enjoying the conference. It was in a beautiful part of the country, but she was afraid of getting on the plane. So this was just creating anxiety for her over months. I said, well, do you have 25 minutes after work on Friday? Sure. We went into her meditation state. We went into her subconscious mind. We found where that fear existed. And the fear was caused by that aspect of her mind sliding off a mountain 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, who knows? And the conversation was, hey, we don't have leather or wet sandals anymore. We have these really sophisticated hiking equipment. They're a little pricey, but you got a corporate job, you're a professional, you can afford them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, I think you're right. And also, we don't climb mountains anymore, do we? No, we don't. I asked her that Sunday night when she landed, I said, how was it? She goes, oh my God, it was a piece of cake. Mm-hmm. Changed her life. Now, that's a little itty bitty thing, but it can prevent people from doing things they want to do in life or doing things the spouse wants to do in life. The most important part about releasing the fear is you get a different understanding of life. There's actually two parts to it. You get a much, much broader understanding of life, and that is primarily that everything's connected. The other is that fear is now out of the way, and the subconscious mind can really express what it wants to be. Maybe that's a brilliant scientist, maybe that's a brilliant dancer, maybe that's somebody that just loves taking care of children, or the people that go into the hospitals and talk to people that are ill. Just great expressions of divinity. So that's really where I kind of hang out, so to speak. Now, that doesn't mean every day when I meditate, I go in and have these deep conversations. Sometimes I do, particularly if there's a particular something going on. But the more you do it, the less you need to be in a meditative state. You develop that clear connection because you've developed a relationship to start with, right? It's just like people. It's just like people. If you know somebody and you stay in touch and you work on the relationship, which doesn't mean it's hard, but it means contact, how you're doing, listening, appreciating, empathizing, helping, then the relationship becomes much more open and people are much more willing to help each other. As simple as that sounds, it is majorly effective, and it does work also with a lot of trauma. And I've done work with the therapist down in Fort Benning, for example, teaching them how to work with soldiers with PTSD. And you can get PTSD from other life events. It can be the death of a family member. It can be a terrible auto accident. It can be the loss of a job. Loss of a job for a lot of people is boom, because they're not only do you run out of money, but many people's identity, particularly in this country, are tied up in their job. It's interesting. Try this sometime. Next time you're at a networking event, ask people what they do for a living, and you'll often hear a title instead of a job. Like I never told people I was VP of Underwriting. I told people I was an underwriter.
Mhm.
That's what I was.
Mhm. Exactly. So I'm thinking about the subconscious mind, and I kind of have a two-part question for you.
Okay.
So, the first part of the question is because the subconscious mind doesn't know time, and my understanding is that the mind can't tell the difference between what's really real and what we're kind of feeding it. So, can we get some of those traumas actually from watching a movie? That's
Sure.
the first part of the question. And the second part of the question is, so since we can get that from just taking in a movie, what about when people are doing these affirmations? Can we feed our subconscious mind something we really want it to do, or no? Is that valid when people are doing these I am this, I am that? Is it working? Is it going in?
Yeah, the answer is yes and yes. And certainly part of it can be maybe. The first part of your question, subconscious mind and time, you have to refresh my memory on what that part of the question
It
was.
was just more about, the movies, and, if you
Oh,
can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. I mean, if I think a thought over and over that something that I didn't like that happened, I can feel bad over and over. And if I think of something wonderful, like when my children were born, I can feel happy again. So sometimes the subconscious mind, can grab onto a movie or even a story or something that you hear that just hits you the wrong way, and then it can make something that's causing you problems in the present.
absolutely. So it can latch onto a negative experience, and movies can be traumatic. I will tell you the first traumatic event that happened to my daughter. I can see it clearly in my mind. She was about 2.5. We just moved into a new house. We have a Disney cartoon on, and in the cartoon, one character pushes the other character to the ground. And she was like, "Oh my God, that person pushed that man. That person pushed that man." And I can feel the feeling today of just how hurtful that was to her, and how it rocked her life. Now,
Mm,
often when those things happen, there's a connection with the subconscious mind that had a particular event around that. And so they can kind of get hung up on that. They can say, yeah, I did this bad thing. And so, I'm gonna react negatively to other people that do bad things. At the same time, you can essentially reprogram your subconscious mind simply by doing. If you've ever seen the movie The Founder, it was about, I believe the guy's name is Ray Kroc, who founded the McDonald's Corporation. He depicted as an incredibly, incredibly bad person. But in the beginning, his character played by Michael Keaton says perseverance. You just keep going. And whether that's the way you think or the way you act or both, um, that does help create things because it's an expression of will.
mhm,
And the expression of will is the most important and powerful part of being a human being. It's the core to creativity. Now, just like beginning painters, we may not paint a Michelangelo at our first painting or second painting, or even a painting 100 years from now. We may not get there, but we are on the way. So those are all very, very important things to consider, and that things do impact the subconscious mind. Now, may I share something that most people don't know where they can work with the subconscious mind? Okay, so there was this person in my life who I just really did not like, probably hated this person. And I was upcoming where I was going to have to be at that person's house for a few days. And so I went back and I looked at my studies, and the study says, well, if you hate someone else or something else, there's part of you that has that hatred. Now, as people were, oh, I don't have that hatred. I don't have this. I don't have that. I'm a good person. Because if you hate people, you're a bad person. BS. It's all part of the process. And so I went in and I had a dialogue with that aspect of me, that part of my subconscious mind. I said, hey, what's going on? And that part was a male expression. And he said essentially, hey, I did some bad stuff in the past, and I hate who I am for having done that. And the healing conversation was, you had to listen, you had to understand, you reflect back, and then you forgive. You forgive that part. And that's the easy part, because the science is that we're all connected. So it's not as if, and you can never die. Your body may die, but you continue to exist. You see references to save your soul. Well, that's really the connection there. And all of a sudden, the probably 98 or more percentage of my hatred for this person went away. And so I've applied that to other things in my life where I have a negative point of view.
So can that happen with certain things? Like, let's say a job. A lot of people are unhappy in their job. Or, something where you just, there's certain things around my house, my unfavorite task to do. So how can we turn that around?
Well, the first thing I want is for people to understand that not every task in life is pleasant. There's a saying in spiritual studies, chop wood, carry water, become enlightened. Chop wood, carry water, become enlightened. We're in this physical life, whether we like it or not. We have to do the laundry. We have to take out the trash can. Our driveway is 0.2 of a mile long. I hate taking out the trash when it's raining or cold. I really, really do. But I have to do it. Now, I could move somewhere else so the driveway's shorter, but I don't, it's like Lee Iacocca from Chrysler Corporation, when he got fired from Ford, he's like, I didn't get everything I deserved, but I got 95%. That's pretty good. So relax the resistance. So let's say taking out the trash is what you really don't like. You have the option, you can trade off with a spouse or someone, say, hey, you take out the trash, because we work together. It's probably one of the reasons why there are more than one person on the planet. The other is to sit a moment, do a little bit of breathing, because when you breathe, you can't think or experience anything other than the moment, and say, what part of my body has that resistance? And you can go into the deep dialogue like I do, or you can simply open up your heart, feel something referred to as universal love, and extend love to this part of you. And just kind of relax and say, hey, look, we got to do this. And then do your affirmations. I take out the trash, the house is cleaner. I do this, the house is cleaner. Or I do that, the house looks nicer, or whatever it may be. My wife would say, suck it up, buttercup. That's the way to do it too. And I got to tell you, sometimes you just got to suck it up, buttercup. But the more you put your mind in, and as you mentioned earlier, the more it's going to come right in front of you. Martin Luther King Jr., one of the greatest teachers of all time on this planet, he, as I understand it, didn't fight against things. He fought for things. So instead of talking about things he didn't like to do, he talked about, hey, what about this result?
Just focus on what you want.
Yeah, and people in jobs, I got to tell you, it's tough, because I had a lot of jobs in my life, or a lot of episodes in my job, where they just were brutal, and you just had to make them better. You had to think of it differently. And when a job is really bad, do everything you can to change your circumstances, but first really understand where that feeling's coming from, because it may not actually be you that doesn't like that job. It may be part of your subconscious mind. And that's an interesting trick, because so much of our emotions are really being expressed by our subconscious mind. Here's another interesting thing, if I may, tacking up on your affirmations, because I'm a big believer in affirmations, is we have English language is a literal language, if I'm saying it correctly, versus Hindi or Hebrew, where there are vibrational languages. So if you've ever seen this experiment where somebody takes a jar and they wrap a balloon around it or a piece of rubber and then make it taut, put sand on it, and then put a microphone on the side of the glass or the jar and vibrate different tones, you'll get different shapes. You'll get crop circles, you get Hebrew letters, things like that. So just speaking those words themselves, there's energy compared with it, or it has an energetic expression. The point of which being that it's a much more powerful expression. So in English, we don't have that. So the more you can express with your feelings, the more power you have in expressing that to all of you and to the universe.
And you have mentioned a couple times your internal dialogue. Do you want to talk more about that? What do you mean by that?
Okay. So this is where I'm dialogue with the subconscious mind. Let's just take, how about you for an example? Are you up for that?
Mm-hmm.
We won't do anything scary, but the model is that there are 5 aspects of the subconscious mind. The 2 we'll focus on today are a male aspect and a female aspect. So you go and I take you through guided imagery and we meet either your male or your female, and we can use intuition to decide which one is most important or has a more important need than the other. And we walk up in guided imagery and you say, hey, my name's Kimberly. What name is it you wish to be called? And she will say, Cynthia. Great.
Oh.
Cynthia. Sorry, I didn't intend to peek, but it turns out I did.
I just think it's funny that I would say a different name than my name.
Well, that's because it's a separate part of you.
Okay.
Right? And so, and you can say, hey, why do you wish to be called that? And you'll may or may not get a reason. And so the question is, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And generally, when you start this dialogue, it's because there are challenges. And so you may get, well, I'm not very happy about such and such. Really, what are you not happy about? Well, I think you should exercise more. I think you should ride a bike. Okay, that's what I'm working on personally. Okay, great. Hey, by the way, Cynthia, I have this challenge with, I really hate doing house chores. Can you help me feel better when I do that? Sure. And so you set and agree to times, and that's it. It sounds ridiculously simple. I think one of 5 people certified in the country to do this. I just received my certification, even though I've been doing it for over 25 years. But here's the other cool thing. Cynthia has had past lives. And you can ask Cynthia, tell me about your past lives. Well, she's not going to tell you all 1,200 or 1,500 or 1,000. She's going to tell you 2 or 3. And those 2 or 3 past lives will have purpose in this life, generally resistances that need to be moved through. Maybe they're relationships, maybe their health, maybe it's finances. Now, understand that this is not the wild, wild west. We're not going crazy here. We are all protected and cared for, and our life is given direction by something referred to as the high self. The high self is, in the model I use, a solar angel, and it's essentially has godlike powers. It's not God by any means, but it has great power and interacts directly with our soul on a level that we generally don't perceive, but could. And so it guides our life experiences. Have you ever been in a place where you met somebody and you just instantly liked them?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, and that person perhaps was a benefit to you. Perhaps you started a friendship or a business relationship or something else. And then, of course, we've been in places where we instantly meet people, or we meet people that we instantly don't like. There's probably recognition there. It could be from a past life. It could be something else. You know, we can't explain it through the laws of physics or the laws of medicine as we know them, but it's real. So I'll give you an example. I was as VP of Underwriting for Aetna. I've been promoted to that position. I come down to Atlanta, and I was very good as a VP of Underwriting because I was good numerically. I had a business degree, graduate business degree, but I also had a great feel for what made sense, what didn't make sense, intuition.
Mhm.
And so I had a good business mind. I could make good decisions, but I wasn't an actuary. I was not somebody whose numerical mind works in, the cloud, that kind of thing. So I get on the phone with the president of the company, Mike Cardillo, the CFO, Dan Messina, VP of sales, and one other person on a really, really big prospect we were working on. And I was the main numbers guy. Now, I didn't actually do the numbers. Somebody else did the numbers, but they talked to me. And it was all going smoothly and great, and everybody's excited. And then Mike Cardillo asked, well, what if we do such and such? Now, I don't remember exactly what that such and such was, but maybe it was, instead of doing 85, let's do 92. What would the effect be? And I drew a complete blank. I had no idea. Now, the people on the other end of the phone, this is before Zoom, they wouldn't know whether or not I should be able to come up with an instant answer, but I thought I should. So I, in my mind, dialogue with my male self, who's more numerical, and I said, help. Instantly, in front of my eyes, in my mind, I saw a formula. Long story short, I used that formula. I gave them an answer. They're like, okay, go. Well, I flew out of my office, got to the actuary's office, slowed down. Oh, how'd the call go? Oh, yeah, the call's pretty good. This came up and here's the formula I used. She goes, yeah, that's the formula I used too. Okay, just checking with you. Went out, almost collapsed. Almost collapsed from the pressure. I'd just gotten this job. Moved halfway across the country. And that's the kind of connection you have. Now, you can ask for that. You can also, you'll have more intuition. The answers will come more easily. Now, for the ladies in the group, they'll like this story perhaps a little bit better. And these stories are both in my first book, Chasing Meditation. When I got divorced years and years ago, I was afraid of two things. Number one, I was afraid of being alone. And I could not ask a woman out on a date. Never had. Any person I'd gone on a date with, any girlfriends I had, were people I'd really known for quite some time in school. So I was literally petrified. And the other part was being financial, and that's a different story. Well, this was really, really disruptive. I was 38 or so, I don't remember. And it's brutal. I mean, it's not the most serious problem in the world, right?
No.
But it really brings on a lot of suffering.
They're no fun.
Yeah.
Which side you're on. Yeah.
And back then when I got divorced, I was in Pennsylvania. All my guy friends stopped talking to me because the wives didn't want them talking to me. I don't know that happens so much anymore, but perhaps it does. So all my friends just evaporated. They disappeared. All my buddies from college and high school, except one. So I go into meditation and I say, okay, guys, who's the one with the fear of asking a woman out on a date? My male subconscious mind raised his hand and said, me. Okay, why? Boom. I am this high definition video, 4K, whatever it is, Ultra D, 3D, 5D, who knows. I'm in a barn dance in Eastern Kansas in the early 30s in June on a Saturday. And there were 4 women, girls, high school, college, I don't know, that were kind of in a line. And I asked the tallest to dance. Who knows why? And she just kind of giggled. And all of a sudden, Kimberly, my body becomes just overwhelmed with grief and sadness and embarrassment. I never had this intensity of feeling. And my reaction was, oh my God, I am so sorry this happened to you. This is terrible. I absolutely love you for doing this. And I know we've learned from this, but I know it has to be horrible for you. And I just connected with my heart and universal love and shared as much of it as I could with this aspect of me in this part of my body. And I said in my mind to this part, who had a name, I said, I promise you, this will never, ever happen again. 20 minutes later, I could ask out any woman on the planet and still can, but my wife has asked me to stop doing it.
That's good.
Funny that way.
Uh-huh.
So it sounds like big deal, guy with a good job can't ask a girl out. Well, it was a big problem in my life. Well, here's the funny thing. Scroll forward 25 years. I ran into that girl again.
Huh.
We're having coffee. We met each other through networking, and ding, I'm like, oh my God, it's you. And I said, so why did you giggle at me? And she just looked at me and giggled and never gave me an answer.
Maybe she's just giggled.
Maybe she does. So these are the kinds of very powerful things you can do. And here's the scoop. It's positive, permanent change very quickly.
Amazing. So
I
we,
have, go
Mhm.
ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, we just have a couple minutes left. Is there anything else you'd like to share that you think, oh, I need to share this with people?
Yeah. Um, Life is going to continue to have challenges. There are a number of reasons for that. We're all divinely protected, although our life circumstances may change. The most important way for us to be okay with things that go on is to be connected inside to universal love and to divinity. There's a lot going on now with I'm not sure integration is the right word, but the respect and acceptance of different races in America. For sure, a lot of it is just hype because people want to sell things or put themselves in a certain position. Um, but love everybody and be okay with everybody. Understand that not everybody is willing to accept love. So be discerning, but be okay with that and understand that you are connected divinely and you are safe and you will continue to exist regardless of this lifetime or the next. And if you don't really feel that connection, you have every right to demand evidence. And you would do that by saying, hi, self, please give me evidence that I am divine and I am loved and I am connected. That may come in dreams. Dreams are very powerful. Dreams are not random. Dreams are not always meant for the conscious mind, so don't get too hung up on what a particular dream is or isn't, but pay attention to dreams. And when you're skilled enough and have lucid dreams, you can actually stop the dream and have conversations with the characters in the dream. But that's a story for another day. I do want people to know that you are loved, you are divine light, you will exist forever, and you are perfect.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, I would like people to be able to connect with you. So, first part of it is where can they connect with you? And also, what services do you have for people?
Very easy answers. Chasing Mindfulness, ChasingMindfulness.com. And I do corporate speaking, but perhaps the more fulfilling thing I do is I help people um, with challenges in their life, people that wish to have a deep connection. And sometimes that challenge is something that's uncomfortable or a resistance. And sometimes that challenge is, hey, is there more to life than what I'm having now? I do work with quite a few fully functional, very skilled professionals in helping them to say, what's next? I do healing, energetic healing. I can help people with past life. Uh, some people refer to it as past life removal. I don't quite look at it that way, perhaps past life integration. And I do on occasionally help people remove entities. That's a whole that's a whole wild different kind of thing.
Mhm. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for all your wisdom. I've learned so much, and I'm sure other people have learned a
Oh,
lot
get out
listening
of
to you.
town. You know all
Yeah.
this before we sit
No,
down.
no, no.
You know all this. You know you did.
So, anyways, I have one last question before we get off. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Do everything Dr. Kimberley tells you. That's what I do.
All right. Anything else?
Uh, Say hello to Cynthia for me.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for being on. We'll
Thank you
talk
very
to you
much.
again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.